Bienvenidos a esta presentación del subjuntivo. This presentation will discuss the present tense subjunctive conjugations. Please watch the present tense subjunctive uses to learn how to use and when to use the subjunctive. This will simply cover the conjugations. The present tense subjunctive is usually presented after the commands are taught, because the conjugation of the present tense subjunctive is very similar to the conjugation of the negative to commands, the formal commands, and the nosotros commands. The first step is to conjugate the verb into the present tense yo form. The second step is to drop the o, and it's always a good idea to follow the steps, because as you see with the verb salir, if you simply take off the IR and add an O, you would be conjugating it incorrectly. Then we add the opposite endings. For AR verbs, the endings are es, hemos, en. And the opposite endings for ER and IR verbs are the same. A, as, a, amos, an. If you have studied the commands, we have the usual suspects as far as our irregulars are concerned. These verbs, ir, estar, ser, dar, and saber, don't end in an O when they're conjugated into the present tense yo form. Therefore, we cannot follow steps, and the conjugations need to be memorized. The verbs that end in car, gar, and zar, for example, tocar, jugar, and cruzar, have the same issue as most of the commands and the same as the preterite tense first person conjugation. Verbs that end in car need to be spelled with a QUE ending in order to preserve the sound of the infinitive. With the QUE ending, it's now correctly pronounced toque. Toque. There's no accent on the E. Verbs that end in GAR need a GUE, juegue, so it's pronounced properly. And verbs that end in ZAR need a CE ending. The difficulty in conjugating into the subjunctive lies in stem-changing verbs. Present tense AR and ER stem-changing verbs do have the stem change, but it does not change in the nosotros form. Pensar, an E to IE stem-changing verb, for example, is conjugated piense, pienses, piense, pensemos, piensen. Pensemos does not have the stem change. An example of an O to UE stem changing verb, volver, is conjugated vuelva, vuelvas, vuelva, volvamos, vuelvan. Again, no stem change in the nosotros form. The difficulty lies in present tense IR stem changing verbs. They have a stem change in all forms, including the nosotros. Let's look at the three types. Pedir is an example of an E to I stem changing verb. Pida, pidas, pida, pidamos, pidan. Pidamos does have the stem change in the nosotros form. An example of an O to UE is dormir. It has a stem change in all forms, but please note the nosotros form is not duermamos, it's durmamos, with simply a U stem change, and the other forms have the UE stem change. Sorry about that telephone ring. An example of an E to IE verb also has the same thing happening in the nosotros form. The change is E to IE in all forms, except the nosotros form. The change is only an E to an I. And as a side note, preferir, if you notice, has two E's in the stem. Whenever you have a stem changing verb that has two E's in the stem, the second E is what changes. Practiquemos. Again, a separate video talks about when to use the subjunctive. For this example, mi padre quiere que means my dad wants these different things. Since these different things haven't happened yet and might not happen, the subjunctive is required to express them. We go in the subjunctive is one of the irregulars. Vayamos. They have. Tengan. I am, using the verb ser. Yo sea. My mom begins. Empezar is a stem changing E to IE verb, and it ends in ZAR. A couple things going on with this one. Mi madre empiece. You study. Estudias. The girls write. Escriban. My brother and I give. Dar. The yo form being doy in the present tense doesn't end in o, so the irregular form for my brother and I is demos. Here's a reflexive verb, and the reflexive pronoun simply goes before the conjugated verb, just like any other conjugation. I take a shower. Me duche. The teacher arrives is a verb that ends in GAR. Llegue. The athlete practices ends in CAR. Practique. We sleep in the subjunctive is a stem changing verb that is an IR verb, which means that the nosotros form is durmamos with just a U. Gracias por ver esta presentación y te deseo mucho éxito.